InnerQuest explores various pathways through which you can connect with the infinite wisdom of the universe and apply it to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. This program, featuring accomplished practitioners, educators, and authors, is provided by Infinity Foundation, an innovative center for holistic studies and research. We invite you to share this journey with us.
Hello, welcome to InnerQuest. My name is Jay Stone, your host for today, and our guest is Amy Solomonson. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, thanks.
Amy is a Libertyville, Illinois entrepreneur and co-owner of Inner Focus Arts. Amy creates rock sculptures, jewelry, and dream catchers that she sells through her website. And she will be leading a rock sculpturing balancing class for the Infinity Foundation. Right. Amy, please tell our audience how your Inner Focused Arts began.
It began from mainly building the rock cairns. I had started to make them, and I worked with another woman, and she helped me form them, and she has art skills. She does fine arts. So the two of us started to go to a few shows and realized that there was the market.
What kind of shows?
We would go to conventions, little conferences. We would actually do workshops in some small stores locally so that we could start working with small business owners. Mm-hmm. So we would do them in their stores as well.
And so why do you call your business Inner Focus?
Well, our whole idea that is it's a spiritually based product line, and it's not New Age necessarily, but what it is a way for people to use some kind of a symbol to help them find some inner quiet and balance, and remind people that you can just take a moment, and once you do that, your focus comes back.
Okay. Okay. And where is your store located?
We actually aren't a store. We are a reseller. We produce them, and then we sell them in different stores, bookstores, and other stores.
And so so you'd be a wholesaler?
I'm a wholesaler. I don't say that very well, thanks.
This is what you sell to other stores?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But we also do, like I said, workshops, and I'll go around to stores and people will bring their favorite rocks, or we'll make them for people on site. Now,
this sculpture has 6 stones. Is there any significance in the number of stones you put, or you just what you feel like?
Actually, this, as odd as this is going to sound, the cairn itself helps it create itself, and so we go for sort of a height function, but at some point, if we go too far with the rocks and the balance, they won't stay. They won't balance. So it's more of a height, actually, than it is just a number.
Yeah, well, I can hold up two of your sculptures together, and they're basically the same height, but the one I'm holding on the right has 6 stones, and the one on the left 5.
Correct. And the difference really that I go for is usually the rounded ones are the ones that come from a water base, so an ocean, a lake. Most of the rocks that have the rugged are coming from trails, pathways, and some of them are ones that were broken open by breakwater. But the stones come from all over the world, and so we have the energies of all different qualities from the earth as well as the water.
Okay, so please describe your product some more.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, these are rock cairns, and what I guess I'd like to make clear is that cairns have been around for centuries, and they have always been pathway markers. So in essence, they're sort of a rock version of Hansel and Gretel leaving things behind. A lot of Boy Scouts would use them.
So like street signs, instead of street signs, they would leave those sculptures on the trails?
And usually that would be 2 or 3. They wouldn't be like this. And the idea is they would walk in, leave them so people would know they were on their path. If there was an emergency or any kind of issue, they could find them. And if they got lost, they would use them to find their way out.
And so what cultures use these sculptures?
Every culture.
Including Native Americans or first-born Americans?
Yes, yeah. Them, and actually if you go back in history, they've been used for religious pilgrimages. If you do anything that has to do with a religious pilgrimage, people will put stones along the way, and the idea is to say, I've been here. I've made the journey.
Well, I know in the Jewish religion that
Yep.
when we go to the cemetery, we're supposed to leave
That's right.
a stone on the person's headstone
Right.
that we're
It's the
visiting.
same idea. The idea is that I was here, I've been, you are being remembered, and you are still part of our life. And these are in a different way the reminder that says, look, we all think we have control over our lives, but essentially balance will come back over time.
And so why would somebody want to buy one of your sculptures and put in their house? Is there some energetic reason for it?
Absolutely. These rocks, like I said, they have a lot of energy in them. Anything that's emanating from the earth is going to have the vibrations and the history of the earth or the water. So when people buy them, they're buying them primarily to use them when someone's going through a transition. Mm-hmm. So if someone's graduating, it's a transition, they're taking a new path. If it's a wedding, they're starting on a new journey. If someone's ill, it's helping them get back on their feet.
Oh, you wake up in the morning, you're starting a new journey?
You bet. And so people have used them on their altars. People I know just leave them in their kitchen, but it's helped people at times just remember to pause. Mm-hmm. They're beautiful. The rocks in and of themselves give you a chance to pause.
Now, I've interviewed some feng shui experts, mm-hmm. and they would say, put like specific things in specific places of the house, like a coin, like a Chinese coin in the money corner,
citrine and amethyst. Right.
So is there a particular place in the house that would be more suited for?
No, I think these are meant to be utilitarian, so that people who may not have that feng shui or the kind of religious or Native American can still enjoy them as just sculptures. I've actually had some people who have had rocks that they've collected over time ask me to come over, and we've stacked them because they just had them lying around and they thought it would be a nice way to have the memories, but also in an art form.
Okay. You want to talk about some of your other products as well?
Sure. I'm also a silversmith and a jeweler, but I didn't bring some of those pieces because I wanted to focus on the same idea of balance. So what I created are, these are chakra balancing bracelets. So it's got all of the crystals and the colors for chakra.
That looks like for a child.
I know, that's the trick. This is made for most people, but it's also made for anybody who does energy work. Because the idea is that it's a chain, and it's some silver, gold, or just gold plate, but it's on an elastic. So you would put it on, it will stretch, but then when it's back on you, it retreats back, so it's not moving a lot if you're doing yoga or if you're teaching or if you're doing art.
Okay. Yeah,
and they do come in different sizes, but they're based on the elastic stretch to rebound on to fit better. So this is, to remind people of color and the effect of color and how color affects us in all ways. Even if someone bought it and, again, didn't have that spiritual background, it's just remembering a rainbow.
Right, and each chakra corresponds to a different part in our body, so we can be like too much in our head and not enough in our heart, or too much energy in the gut.
And the idea is that it starts with the base, and so usually I tell people to put the red on the inside, so it's on the pulse point on the ground, and it goes all the way up through the crown. Mm-hmm. That's the design. And then this one is a gratitude bracelet. One of the things that I've worked with is the idea that we all want to do a gratitude journal. It's great, but we never have time. Or we look at a journal and we think we have to fill the page, and it's too much work, so then you don't do it. The idea behind these are mala beads, and a mala is a meditation tool. And what I did is I put them also on a bracelet, and although it should be a certain number, 108, 104, I couldn't do that, so there are 8 beads on each bracelet, and it's to represent infinity. But what I ask people to do is simply hold it and think about a very simple thing they're grateful for. It's not, wake up in the morning, it's beautiful out. The sun's out. My son's home from college. Everything's good. And do that at the beginning or in the end of the day. Okay.
Excellent.
And then the last product that I wanted to show everybody is Dreamcatcher. And I make these dream catchers from actually most of the cores are from my weeping willow tree in the backyard. I gather them up, and then I showed this in a different sequence. I bend them while they're wet, tie them, and then as they dry, they'll form the shape. And then over time, what I start to do is add pieces of nature into it. So this would be the first carnation. Then what I start to do is doing the webbing. And these aren't your classic.
What does the webbing consist of?
Well, it's an actual hair. It's like a form of hair and yarn. So it's a natural fiber. And if you know about dream catchers, usually they're circles, and they have all of the webbing, and it's supposed to catch the bad dreams.
Well, our audience may not know about dream catchers. Yeah, so why don't you explain it to our audience?
Certainly. The idea is, this is a very Native American concept, and the idea was that you would create a dream catcher, and it usually is a circle or it could be a tear shape, and you would hang it on or by a bed, and people could do it with babies or people who had insomnia, and you would hang it, and the concept is during the night, if a bad thought, a bad energy, a bad dream happens, the aura, the energy of it gets caught up in the webbing, and the good dreams go through all the open spaces. And then upon the daylight, the idea is that it just will poof, disappear, and the bad dreams can drift off the feathers, and then the rest of your time is good.
Sometimes I see dream catchers and vehicles hanging from
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, so it's catching those bad thoughts related to driving.
Yes, yeah.
The road rage thoughts.
Yeah. And then also I think people just meditate on getting a parking space sometimes. So it can be very
well, there's parking angels for that.
I know. So this is the core of what I've been working on and selling with different markets around the country.
Now, you have some loose rocks. Is there a particular reason why you brought
those?
Well,
I wanted to do this because there's also a workshop I've done with Al-Anon groups and AA groups when we try to talk about pausing and having a sense of quiet, which none of us do. So I would put these out, and I'd have people just take. I'm going to hand that one to you, for instance.
Okay.
And so what you should do is just simply, for 30 seconds, I'd like you to look at it. You know, you don't have to think about anything else, but just take the moment to look at it and see that there is an amazing amount of beauty and texture that is around us by our feet at all times. And each one of these rocks is a miracle in itself. And it's one of those moments that just says, it's right in front of us. If we just pause, we will see it.
Well, the act of pausing is very grounding, and then when you're holding a rock, that's grounding too.
Exactly.
Well, earth energy.
Absolutely.
We tend to have energy that's more upward.
Exactly. And in these day and age, there's a lot of stress, and some of it starts with putting your feet down on the ground and trusting the ground is under you.
And I know another Jewish tradition is at the end of the year that you go to the river or lake and you grab the stones and you throw it away like you're throwing away your sins.
I would not recommend that with the cairns, but you can do that with the individual items. The one thing I did want to make people understand about our cairns, because it is a very popular item, and you see a lot now in stores, and generally they're drilled, and they have a big stake in them because they're so big, or they're candles. Ours, the way I make these is they have to balance before they're bonded. I don't just put anything on.
And is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the integrity of what the cairn does. And the cairn in nature will, if balanced correctly, withstand pretty much anything that'll come its way weather-wise. And rather than forcing it, it needed to happen in its own accord. And then I do the getting it together on the points. And they are water resistant, but I do tell people that if in fact for any reason they fall apart, the good part is you can rebalance them.
Now, the rocks that you have here, do you order them from someplace?
Well, the bounty first came from Lake Michigan, and then the bounty grew.
So that doesn't cost you any money.
Right, up front it didn't cost me for the startup. And then as I've continued to make these, every time a friend or a friend of a friend or a friend of a friend has traveled, they've brought back rocks with them. So I have them from Kilimanjaro, I have them from deserts, I have them from Mexico, I have them from Peru, and I take them and I put them all in the same grounding energy, and they're shared.
How long have you been doing this?
Well, pretty much, I think, most of my life, because I'm a beachcomber and a rock lover. But professionally, it's been about 4.5, 5 years.
And how did you get started?
Well, again, I'm a rock lover. When my family would go on a car trip, we would pick up rocks, and those would be our souvenirs. And I went down to Lake Bluff Beach one day just to relax, and I noticed people were just picking the rocks up and unconsciously stacking them and then restacking them, and they were so calm. And I thought, wow, people are just doing this without thinking. And I started to create the cairns in a smaller form for people to take.
Now, I'm familiar with Zen rock gardens.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen pictures of it. I've actually been to monasteries and seen it maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Do they make rock sculptures?
Building
them up. I've seen them spread out, but not up.
They will be there at times, but the ones that you might see are usually the beautifully rounded, brushed rocks that are the Buddhist stacked rocks, because it's just, again, it's a Zen quality to the rocks, and they're usually very similar. But you will see a lot of them, but they're not out front. They're usually near an altar or an area of walkways.
And do you know of any prayers that go along? I know just the fact you're quiet while you're working with the rocks is a prayer in and of itself.
Exactly.
But are there any words that go along with it?
Well, what we do the reason they were called cairns to go officially was that we would sell them in a to-go box, because when you see a cairn, usually they're humongous. So these would all fit in this box, and that would be part of the whole sale. Usually we get this, the box, and the delivery system all in one. And then inside, though, because not everybody knows what a cairn is, we would include the description that goes like this. A rock cairn, they're pathway markers for journeys taken by land and by sea. The delicate balance of rocks weather many challenges, yet stand to remind us of where we have been and all that is yet to be. So that is what goes with the larger cairns.
Okay. Now, why don't you...
I just want to show you this, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What I have also done is there's some companies that have asked us to make small token size, and the idea behind them is either to be a souvenir or also to put as an add-in to maybe a gift that's being given. And these actually have a different saying in them, and that is stepping beyond what we know and trusting what will be. Hold this cairn in your hand and on your journey, and if it leads you to feeling lost or afraid or confused, let it be a reminder that balance and beauty and peace are within us all.
And why don't you show the audience that rock sculpture? I can hold up this little one here, because I think that's what...
Right. So these are really for people who like tokens and small pieces to add in. And again, it's just a way to remember.
You could almost carry it in your pocket.
You could, absolutely. I think that the contact points on these is so tiny, it's not necessarily the best way, but you could. I have one in my car.
Okay. And why don't you tell the audience what you do in your workshops? I think they have a good idea, but I'd like to hear from you.
Well, first I gather everybody together and we do a gratitude meditation, and it's very similar to what we just did. It's a pausing, and I ask people to imagine 3 or 4 different scenarios, close their eyes, and picture those things and try to pause and really feel it and know that they're there, just to ground everybody and get them quiet. And then what we'll do is people will either bring their rocks or I bring a large quantity with me. And in this case, we're going to be actually transferring from infinity to the beach, and people will then be doing a walking silent meditation while they're selecting their own rocks. Then we'll find a place quietly.
How long does that usually take? I know it's different for different people. And
it's going to be a half hour. So for the rock search, some people may want to make more than one. So if there's somebody out there who's really great at selecting their rocks, they may have enough for 2. But some people will take their time and really feel and select the ones that they love. So then what we're going to do is practice stacking them. And once they get a stacked pile, then I will show them how to do the contact pieces so that they can take it home with them by the end of the workshop.
You mean so that they stick together?
Yeah, we worked with, it was a beautiful moment of synchronicity where I wanted to do these. I was using, awful glues that would crack and fall apart, and I finally went to a landscaping group that's up where I live, told them about it, they loved it, and they actually worked with me to create a bonding agent that's more mud and cement than it's glue. So everything is natural, and that's what we use because it'll hold the rocks better.
Okay. And so how long is your workshop
Going to be?
Yeah.
It's probably about 2.5 hours. It'll be a little bit longer because we have transportation, but it should be fun. I mean, the one thing that I try to encourage everybody to do, and this is probably the most important lesson I ever learned about how to look through nature, is I tend to get manic about finding rocks because, you know, I want to make sure they look beautiful. And you have to pause again and remember that the bounty's going to come every day, and you don't have to force anything. So if you find what you need, you stop. The next day you may get more, and they'll be different, and that's fine.
Is there anything else about the history of these rock sculptures that you haven't talked about yet?
The thing is that most people probably wouldn't recognize them if they were right in front of them. A huge number of cairns start out as stacked rocks, but then as people make their pilgrimages, and it's very similar to what you said about the Jewish tradition, they'll have a rock with them, they'll place it on the cairn to say, I've done my journey, and then over time, it's simply a mound of pebbles. Mm-hmm. And it's really magnificent when you see those.
Well, where I go pick up my cleaning, when I drive out of the parking lot, they put in a rock wall. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I know like the big box stores, they sell rocks so people can build their own walls. Mm-hmm. And I know I've been in Kentucky and seen some beautiful rock walls.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I think what you find when you start to talk about rocks, and it sounds kind of odd, but there are really a lot of rock people out there who love it. And the beautiful part about being up here is that some of the rocks that you find are agates up here. There's some unbelievably old slate. You also can find pieces that are simply the breakwater falling apart, grounding itself. So you find so many different textures and different qualities.
Well, I remember, like, back in the 70s, there was the pet rock.
Well, yes. That was the first thing people asked me about, and I explained that they didn't grow anything, nor did they have to be cared for.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Now, sculptures are very large and rounded in nature. What gave you the idea to create small ones for homes and altars?
Well, again, it goes back to the sense of seeing balance in front of you. And I know a lot of people who are using feng shui, and there are a lot of people who have altars, and there are a lot of people out there who are very, very spiritually based and like to have a good solid crystal or rock on their altars. And so when I saw these, I knew they'd be universal because they're unisex, they're young and old, and it again is a grounding tool and a reminder tool. Because when you look at perhaps this cairn, you know, you would look at this and you'd say, really, how did this balance? But it does, because in everything there's a balance point, and if you really took your time, there's an actual, almost imaginary line that runs through it.
Now, I've been to some rock shops where they have like jewels and gems and crystals. Can you make a sculpture out of those as well?
Yeah, I've also, a friend of mine has crystals from Brazil and some Mexico and some other places, and again, she had them out when she would do a show, but she wanted to be able to keep them, and so we balanced all of the different crystals, and I used a different bonding agent so it was clear, and then
how tall was it?
It was probably from the table up about that tall. And so it's one of those moments where you just have to really wrap them, but it became really important to her to have those.
What's the highest rock sculpture you've seen?
Oh my. I've seen huge ones. And mostly I've seen them by labyrinths. Because a lot of time when you're doing a walking meditation with a labyrinth, the center area is usually a rock cairn or just some sort of function where people can leave a symbol from their
Now,
walk.
our audience may not know what a labyrinth is. You want to explain that?
Sure. They are a puzzle, if you want to kind of think of it as a puzzle. And the labyrinth is a walking meditation where it's a pathway. And it's done in a circular way, so you're doing switchbacks.
And isn't the pathway marked by rocks?
Most of the time they're marked by rocks.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The ones that are out in nature. And what you would do is you would start at the entrance and you would have an intention and be quiet, and you can walk and think about nothing. You can walk with a question, and it helps you not have to worry about where you're going, and you just get a rhythm. And sometimes people use them for meditations, and sometimes people just use them to slow down. Mm-hmm. I actually built one in my backyard last summer. My son and I decided it was time, and I have a 26-foot parameter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I would have loved to seen a picture, and I'm sure our audience would have enjoyed one too.
Yeah.
You know, is it possible you can build a sculpture out of what?
I can try. That's why I brought them. There's a huge selection, but it would, let me move these over here, if that's okay. And again, it's not something I can force, but it would be something like if you need this solid base, it doesn't have to be. And then, you know, I've gotten a better eye at doing it, but it doesn't always work. And you have to really keep your hands quiet and not force. So what I'm looking for are angles.
The next one's going to be tough.
Yeah, they usually are right about now. See, and now that's okay, because what it told me was this is not maybe the right rock for it. So we start a different one. This is a little bit low for me to work on.
You know, I could see kids really enjoying this.
Love it. Yeah. They absolutely love it. My neighbor's children came over one summer because they couldn't believe how many rocks I actually had in my yard. And they built them.
That's beautiful. Yeah, are children invited to your workshop?
Oh, absolutely. Children are definitely, they love it.
Yeah, I hope the word gets out that I could just see as a kid, you know, because I remember as a kid like skipping stones. Oh. We just used to love to do that. And
you know, sometimes when I'm at the beach, wherever I'm traveling, and I start looking, and then all these kids will come up to me and say, "What are you doing? What are you looking for?" And they all think it's sea glass that I'm looking for. And I said, "No, I'm looking for really nice rocks." And then I'm like, you know, the Pied Piper. They follow me around and they say, "Is this a good one?" And then they get involved with the whole thing.
Yeah, and use their imagination.
They absolutely do.
And very, very simple.
And it really, the funny part about all of it is without knowing it, they're meditating, because it really becomes a quiet moment. See, meditation in my mind doesn't have to be about necessarily sitting and repeating a mantra. Building the cairns is a meditation for me.
Well, the best definition I've ever heard of meditation, it's not what you think.
Right.
Yeah, and so anything that empties the mind is meditation. It could be vacuuming, it could be cleaning, it could be gardening.
And that's what we need to
grow.
Sculpture. That's right.
Well, we've got 2 minutes to go. Is there anything that you want to add that you haven't added yet?
What I think I'd like to say to anybody out there who's looking for sort of a spiritual beginning point, if you had known me maybe 10 years ago, I would not have necessarily been doing this. But with the path in my own personal journey, I found my way into an art piece that provides me with beauty and balance and joy. And I just had to be curious and let it happen. And I would encourage most people, if they have it in them, to just pause long enough, listen to what might sound like fun, and start doing it.
Mm-hmm. And what about your family? Does your family participate?
My son, who helped me build the labyrinth, his name's Daniel, and he helps build labyrinths, actually.
Where does he build them?
Well, we now have a template from how he and I figured out geometrically how to do it. So he's starting to talk with other churches or community centers to see if there's a way to help them do that without using the plastic ones. They have like awful plastic ones.
And does he charge for the service? Or?
He does. He does. He charges for his time and his layout, and then we will use anybody's rocks that are available and our order for them and find some really nice ones.
Excellent.
So
excellent. But I didn't want to. You want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, Daniel is outstanding at these. Outstanding. He just. I think he thinks the physics behind it is what makes it amazing. That will always find its balance point, and he has a good eye, and he can help a lot. So.
All right. For more information about Amy, Inner Focus Arts, Infinity Foundation, or the Inner Quest talk show, stay tuned to the credits at the end. Until next time, wish you good health, good spirits, and good fortune. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you very much.
For more information about this show, our guests, Infinity Foundation, or any of our other programs, please visit our website, infinityfoundation.org, or call us at 847-831-8828.